If you want to participate, contact me at ordinarywomenpodcast@gmail.com. I'm sure you have great projects to brag about. You can also follow me and message me on Instagram at Ordinary Women Podcast, on Twitter at Ordinary Women PC, or on Facebook on the page Ordinary Women. Hi everyone, thanks for tuning in and welcome to a new episode of Ordinary Women. And I'm with Karen today. Hi Karen.
Hi.
How is it going?
It's going. It's Saturday. I feel great. The sun is hopefully going to shine in New York. So yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah, well, thank you for coming. Very excited to hear about everything that you have to tell me. Can you start by giving us a quick introduction of yourself, please?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. My name is Karen Erasmus. I live in New York City. I am not a native New Yorker, but I am a New Yorker after 16 years here. I'm a coach, mentor, consultant, and I'm a citizen of the world. I'm not going to say my age because, let's just say I'm a woman.
That's more than fine. And can you tell us something unusual about yourself?
Oh gosh, there's so many unusual things about me, and I embrace my quirkiness. So everybody that knows me knows this about me, actually. So there's nothing to be embarrassed about. I cannot eat out of anything chipped or drink out of anything chipped. A chipped glass, even a chipped plate, any crockery. I think it's a superstition. I have no idea why, but it's just something I cannot do. So that's one of my quirkiness. And I cannot have any seeds in my drink. So if you're giving me a glass of lemon juice and a seed goes in there, I will not drink it. Yeah, it's weird, but it's my weird.
Well, thank you for sharing. And yeah, since here we talk a lot about being a woman, I like to start the podcast by asking, was there an event or a moment in your life when you realized that you are a woman?
I was struggling with this question when you gave me the question before. And I wanted to say, because I was thinking about it, I'm a very analytical person, so bear with me. A woman from a perspective of the physiological side or more from a metaphorical side. So if I think about it, for me, I would honestly say no, because I grew up in a culture and an environment in a community that the minute you're born female, there are certain expectations. So that woman thing has always been in the back of my mind, whereby I need to be a certain way in order to not rattle cages or not kind of like, from a cultural perspective, not stepping up to the plate from a woman's perspective. But I think when it really hit me was when I traveled to a very homogenous country. I was living in Poland at the time, and I was in the little town, I was the only person of color and only Black woman right there. And it struck me like, oh, wow, this felt so weird because the men just behaved so differently towards me versus my male counterpart, my friend who was from Europe. And it wasn't a sexual thing. It was more about this is the first time we see a Black woman in this village. So I'm not even sure if it was a woman thing or rather than a race thing, but I wasn't treated badly, but I felt like I was like, oh wow, I was this novelty coming in. And if people know me, they'll be like, she's a woman, but she's not a woman kind of woman. I'm like a guy's kind of woman and a woman's woman, but I'm not just like, oh, I want to go paint my nails. I want to go, do my hair all the time. So to answer your question, there was no real specific moment in my life. I think growing up culturally, it's always been in the back of your mind. You have certain obligations, certain responsibilities. But for me, the distinction was growing up in a house of men, whereby as a female, I had to do all the chores. I had to cook, I had to clean. And I had such resistance to that, to the point that I became so rebellious and I became a daddy's girl because he was the only one that understood where I was coming from. And my mom was very traditional. So to answer, making a long story short, that's that's kind of like my idea of understanding like this woman thing and what it means.
Right. Thank you so much for sharing. And yeah, I was gonna ask, like, did you rebel against having to do the chores, etc.?
Absolutely. Are you kidding me? Like my grandparents raised me. So all my uncles in the house, and they were all young because my mom had me very young. And I'm like, well, I'm 10 years old. Why am I supposed to wash the dishes? He's what, 25? Why can't he go wash the dishes? This was me. I've always been like that, like questioning or challenging the status quo. I'm like, wait, my granny had to work. My mom was working away from home. As I said, my grandparents raised me. And I was just like, wait, I'm not going to do this. I felt like at a young age, I became a feminist, but not a feminist out of women's rights yet, more out of pushing against the patriarchy, pushing against this is my role in society and this is what I have to do. Oh my, you have no idea. So I did everything the opposite. I played sport. I refuse to wash the dishes when I'm being told to. Like, this is me rebelling. I'm like, I'm going to wash it because I want to wash it. Don't tell me I have to wash it because I'm a girl. I have to do it. And I was very surprised that my dad, my grandfather, really understood this part because he was very old school, but very modern in his way. And so I had very much support in that, whereby I was like, well, I have to focus on academics, so I cannot do all these things if you want me to be good in school. So something has got to give. So yeah, I rebelled a lot.
That's cool. Go you. And also, it's like hearing you, like, for instance, you say that you were not like a girl's girl, or like that you to be rebellious, you went to play sports. It's also quite interesting to see that these are also like, quite stereotype of girls. Like, I've rarely done my nails, for instance. I love makeup. I love sports. Like, it's funny how, like, the entire vision about that as well that you seem to mention.
Yeah, right. It's kind of like how society dictates and how we ought to be, right? But then I was thinking more about this, and I was thinking, you know what? If you think about, I'm Generation X. So if I think about my grandparents and my mother, and if I think about how they were raised from a perspective of very patriarchal. If you think about way back then, 60s, 70s, 50s, and then you think about like they didn't have the support to really or know what it is to be a woman in a space of self-advocacy. For them, it was about survival. If I give my child an education, if I cook, if I clean, if I make sure I instill a level of morality, I've done my job as a mother, as a woman, right? So nowadays, and I've always fought against this in a way whereby, and that's why my clients always say, like, you sound more like a millennial or a Gen Z than anything else. I'm like, yes, I know, because I've been rebelling against all these stereotypes. So, and now we're in this space, in this world whereby kids and adults nowadays are like, now we are becoming the parents for our parents, because now we have learned the skills to know what it is to have a dialogue, to have a conversation, and especially with our mothers, because they seem to be like more the resistant ones to this, because in their minds, they've been ingrained, like, I just take care of my family and my kids. That's enough. I'm talking about the old school ones. I'm not talking about these new generations coming in, trying to be like, oh, let's have a dialogue. Let's have a timeout. In my days, I never had a timeout. I got a slap on the face. I got the belt on my butt and say, you're not going anywhere for the whole week. And for me, that was a form of love. That's all I knew. Kind of like, oh, they're protecting me. They're scared. That's why they're doing that. So, in hindsight, now that we understand the psychology and kind of like understanding all these generational ways of being, that it makes sense now why certain things were instilled in me. Doesn't mean I accept it. It just means kind of like I have an appreciation for it, but I'm definitely doing it differently.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing all of this. And yeah, the more we go, the more we learn about these things then. And so growing up, did you have any female role models then?
Yes, I have loads, and I'm kind of like an old school. So my grandmother, my mom, I'm originally from South Africa. So I grew up in a community whereby if when my granny had to go to work, she would leave me next door to auntie whomever to take care of me for the week, right, and just pay her. And it was older women. So these were my role models. I stood on their shoulders to kind of like learn, get that wisdom. But definitely, up to today, I never found the word for it until COVID hit. They taught me about resilience. And if you think about all the hardship, all the things that women had to go through when I was growing up in the 80s, 90s, it was something really like, wow, all the wisdom that they imparted on me was really about, strength, showing up in the best possible way. Because I was a very hyper child. And, if I'm challenged, I'm going to give you my 2 cents. I'm not going to keep my mouth shut. So I had that balance kind of like to really be intuitive and to start thinking about what is it that I want to say, but say it in a way that can have a positive impact, right? So I've had a lot of female role models. I'm not going to mention just one, but the two that standing out for me are definitely my grandmother and my mother, because I know what they've gone through and I know the struggles. So yeah.
Cool. You were talking earlier about, when you were rebellious, your mom and your grandma wouldn't necessarily understand. Would you get any support from all of these other women with whom you were interacting?
Oh, absolutely. I would go cry next door to Auntie Nellie or, Auntie Violet. I was like between the ages of 5 and 10. I would go cry over there, right? Because I just didn't understand, because I don't like rules. I also have ADHD. I was diagnosed when I was 6 years old, and way back then they didn't have a name for it. But apparently I was super smart. But the way I was educated didn't benefit me. Like I couldn't learn fast enough. And then it turned out they thought I was dumb. But then as older I got tested, and then they realized, oh my gosh, this child is actually kind of smart. It's just she needs a different way of how information is being positioned to her or laid out in front of her. So yeah, so these women really, they would explain things to me in a way that maybe didn't make sense, because my family came from a place of fear and protection versus, hey, this is why this is happening, right? There were no explanations. It was just the rules, and that's it. You have to do what you have to do. Mm-hmm. So having a third party, getting that support from them was something so nice, because to this day, when I am trying to understand somebody, instead of coming from a place of fear or anger, I try to ask a question, or I try to explain my point of view, because I think it's really important to have a safe space to be able to explore emotions.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and also I feel that right now the conversation about ADHD kind of like starts.
Mm-hmm.
But I have so many friends who were not diagnosed until like at least 20, or like mixed diagnosed, and yeah, all the like learning
disability
part. Yeah.
Yes.
It's just whether at school, like with your parents, or like, yeah, it's yeah. And what about now? Do you currently have any role models?
Yes, I have a few, and I'm not one to go for celebrity role models. But what I will say is, I have a couple of role models. One is my sister, and even though her and I don't see eye to eye, but she's been through so much in her life, and she is the epiphany of strength, resilience, and like life has knocked her down, and she keeps on rising. I should share this with her more often and tell her this. She's one of them, and my partner. She is she doesn't like to take risks, but she makes sure that when she encounters people, that there's a level of what do you call it? Like, she's just genuinely nice, right? And it sometimes frustrates me because I think it's occupational hazard that I can see sometimes through people's behavior, not judging them, but kind of like have a predictive model in my mind. And she's just nice, and I really and very thoughtful and very looking at everything before she would make a decision, whereby I am very impulsive about the decision. If it feels right in my gut, I will do it. And these two women has been a pivotal part of my life for the past many years. And it's just something that I see in them more so what I want to cultivate more in me. So when it comes to celebrities, I would say there was one person that really inspired me 3 years ago, and she's been on the circuit for a long time. Her name is Mel Robbins. She's a motivational speaker, and she was also down in the slums. And I still remember whenever I feel or know I'm not doing enough for myself, these two things, the thing that she created was the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rule. And you count to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you get up and you do it. Because, as she says, nobody's coming to save you. You only have yourself. Nobody's coming to tell you to get off the couch, stop watching TV, stop eating all that bad food. Nobody's coming to save you. Like sometimes when I feel a little bit like, oh, I have no energy today, to reach out to people or to connect with people, I say to myself, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, just do it. Even if you do it for 5 minutes, if you do it for 10 minutes. And I really respect her because, if you follow her or you read up about her, you'll see the life that she's had and where she is now. And it's very rarely that I find motivation or look at influencers or celebrities, so to speak, for these kind of things, because I do feel like our community has all the resources that we can pull from or thrive on to really build us up. So yeah, those are kind of like the people.
This sounds so interesting. I'm definitely going to check her after. I love that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rule. That's amazing. What's the last thing that you've done thanks to that?
Actually, yesterday, when you work for yourself, you can become lazy. And I'm one of those people because I'm all about feeling like if I don't feel it, I'm not going to do it. And then I'm like, okay, so catch-22. If I don't do it, I'm not going to make money. I'm not going to pay my bills. I won't be able to feed my dog,
Yeah.
So yesterday I was supposed to reach out to a few people that reached out to me. But because of my spine surgery, I cannot sit too long at the desk. So I was just on the couch relaxing with the dog. And I said to myself, it's 2:00, Karen. What have you done today to make yourself feel proud? I say this to myself. What have you done today for your business? And right there in that moment, I made a decision. I make a conscious decision to say, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I got up, plugged my laptop in, started reaching out to people. I posted something on LinkedIn. So I got up to do one thing, was reaching out to people. But I posted something on LinkedIn. I wrote an article. So for 2 hours, that is how effective it is. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I call this in my coaching practice a pattern interrupt with my clients. So interrupt that pattern that you fall back on that makes you comfortable, right? Because nobody's coming to save me. Nobody's going to bring me clients. Nobody's going to help me lose the weight if I don't move, right? Nobody's going to make me food if I don't eat, because I sometimes forget to eat. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, get up, do it. So try it. I really recommend it. She's amazing. She has a great book. You can even watch her on YouTube. She's amazing.
Cool. Thanks for the tip. Yeah, I'll definitely try this. And do you think the lack of representation of women in society had an impact on you?
So I think this is where my perspective may differ a little bit. So yes, I understand lack of women, representation of women in society in terms of maybe corporations across the globe in top leadership positions, yes. But speaking from as a person of color, I can honestly say yes, the lack of representation of Black women or people of color or BIPOC women in society, in leadership roles, in actually not even all the way up to the food chain, but even midway in the food chain, is really bad. So when I came here 16 years ago, moved back to New York, I was really surprised at, with my global mindset, because I'm a global citizen, coming in, and I'm like, wow, I cannot believe I'm making less money than a man. I'm like, what? Then it was like, what, 60 something cents on the dollar compared to what a man would make. And I'm thinking about the leadership roles. And I'm thinking, yes, there are women leadership, but there are not many people like me that I see in these roles. And a majority of my career now has been spent in marketing and advertising. And it's even more profound when I see that, to the point that it just bothers me that I've starting to make it my mission to start creating communities and be part of communities that can really amplify this more so. Because yes, we have a lot of intersectionality going on. Yes, women, top. People of color, yes, I check all the boxes. Person with disability, yes, I check that box. Immigrant, I check that box. LGBTQ plus, I check that box. So it's kind of like I'm a woman, but all these other layers of me, are also affected by my position in this world, right? I'm not just, my identity is so complex because one day I cannot just say I'm a woman. I am all of me. And when I walk out the door, that is all of me. Unfortunately, society only sees a part of it. Whoever sees just I'm a woman, yes. Whoever sees I'm a Black woman, yes. Whoever sees I have all these things, yes. That's it's on them. But I fundamentally believe it's about what I can do to amplify women's voices, to have that representation. I don't mind being in the background because I'm an introvert. So for me, it's not about having to, I want to be in front and center to do this. Like, I was so happy about this podcast because I would hate to be on camera. I like to be behind the lens. So yeah, for me, the representation is still not there. Yes, COVID hit, and some organizations try to make an effort, but it's not good enough. It has to be better. We have to do better. We as women, we have to support each other and open doors. There's a guy that I followed 2 years ago. He's actually a friend of a friend, and he's very outspoken about this. And he says, I've reached the top, and I will send the elevator down to the people that need it. And that's kind of like the mindset that I've always had. As an empath, I always put, and also a little bit of a people pleaser, I always put others first before I put myself first. And if I can impact a woman's life in the smallest modicum, in the smallest way possible, like even just having a 10 or 15-minute conversation with somebody when they feel they are stuck, they don't know what to do next. If I can impart wisdom or give advice or even just coach them for those 15 minutes, I will do it gladly, without even blinking an eye, without even asking for money, without even saying, with no judgment. Just kind of like to say, you have moved the needle forward in every possible way.
That's super cool. That's amazing. And yeah, like, it is so needed and sometimes so frustrating that it's not moving fast enough. But also, like, well, thank you for making things move, I guess, because like it's so important. And you say that, you were doing as much as you can. What's like the last thing that you've done, or like an important thing that you've done in that regards?
I'm a full-time mentor, and my last mentee, fresh out of college, it's the last year. She's actually graduating now in May, and I offer my services for like a year. And my service is me as a mentor, also as a coach, and making sure that she's set up for success and asking the right questions. And her major is in one thing. She wants to go into another thing. And after the past 6 months that we've worked together, we came to the conclusion that's not the direction that she wants to go into. She wants to do something else. And I was so proud of that, because she's not going into the hype of, oh, I'm fresh out of college, I have to pay my student loans, I have to make sure that, my family's proud of me. She chose her. She followed her passion, because even that may change in a year's time, but at least she's going to be doing something that she's driven by, that she likes, something that she feels passionate about, and she's learning a completely new way, a new skill at the same time. So I love doing this, and I usually have random conversations with people that I always say to my friends, hey, if you know somebody that just wants to have a conversation with me, that's stuck, that don't know what's next, or they are afraid, or they've reached the top of the ladder in the career, and now what? What do I do now? I'm still not happy. I say to them, I just want to talk to people. I just want to connect. I'm a relational person versus a transactional person. And that's just my way of giving back. And the weirdest thing is, most of the people that are being referred to me are all women. And I'm like, maybe that should be my niche. Because right now I serve all humans and not just women. But I would say 75% of the people that are being referred to me identify as women. And I love that.
That's amazing. That just sounds so cool. Thank you for doing what you're doing. People are so important at this point where, we know that there is an issue, but now we have to solve it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for the amazing work you're doing.
Oh, thank you. I love it, though. That's a difference, right? If you love what you're doing, you don't work a day in your life.
Yeah. Let's talk about like a project or like life achievement that you have that you want to focus about. What did you want to talk about?
So I was thinking about this. I've achieved a lot, but my goal is if I can speak in the present and future state of what I want to achieve. Will that be okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So this is what I'm really proud of. So as I mentioned before, I had cervical surgery in March, and it was Women's Month. And it was my first time that I'm solo, started my business last year, and I wanted to give back to women because I've stood on the shoulders of powerful women in my career, in my life, and I just wanted to do something. So I mentally, and I actually started drafting it last week, I am going to create, I already have one person for it. I'm creating a 1952 circle. Ask me why 1952.
What is 1952?
This is my mom's birthday, and she passed away 5 years ago this year. And this is an homage to that. And 1952 is prevalent throughout my whole 2022. I want to impact 1,952 people by having positive and intentional conversations with them and transformational conversations with them. My women's group, this is my project that I'm creating, is called 1952 Women's Circle. And I want to start this project to give back because a lot of the things that what you asked me before in the beginning about what the program will entail is it's going to be only for 5 women. It's going to run over a period of 2 months plus additional 4 as they are building their tribe together, these 5. And within that group is it can be any woman, but I'd prefer to be women that are kind of like mid-career or mid to senior career, middle-aged women that's really struggling right now. Well, I'm struggling. I struggled last year when I had to quit my job and to really walk my purpose and do what I'm doing now. That was the best gift that COVID has given me. If COVID didn't happen, I probably would have still worked for the man, so to speak, the expression here. So within this program, the 1952 Circle of Women, they will create a tribe whereby they will support each other. For the 2 months that we'll be meeting 6 times as a group, we'll be learning, and I'll be leading this, about resilience, leading with empathy in your life, in your career, self-promotion. That is such a hard thing for women. I'm a Google I'm Remarkable facilitator, and when I run my workshops, it's so hard for women to talk about their achievements. So on the Google I'm Remarkable, it says, well, it's not bragging if it's true. Because a man wouldn't think twice about bragging about, I closed this deal, I made $15 million. For women, it's kind of like, oh, I need to be, I need to know my place. I need to be humble. And remember, my mindset is not like that. I'm like, I'm right here with you. When I walk in the room, I walk in as me. Self-promotion, vulnerability. And that's the foundation of this workshop. I don't know if you're familiar with Brené Brown, but this is a quote from hers that really hit home for me, where she says, vulnerability is not winning or losing. It's having the courage to show up and be seen when we have no control over the outcome. Vulnerability is not weakness, it's our greatest measure of courage. I wasn't a fan of her, honestly, for a long time, but the more I am seeing her and her essence, and I'm so in love with what she's doing and how she's changing lives more so, that it really impacted me. So having said that, that's part of it, vulnerability. And how do you create that psychological safety? Part of this group. So it's like a lot of things that we'll be covering, psychological safety for yourself, for your family, for your people at work. Right? What does that look like? What are your needs that are not being met? And how do you advocate for that? Right? And some of the women may be in there where they want to have I want to talk about my career, I want to talk about my life. And in addition to that, each woman will get 2 hours of coaching with me. And after this 8 weeks are done, we're going to celebrate. And then I'm going to give them the basis of this whole program is called mental fitness. I don't know if you're familiar with positive intelligence.
No, not at all.
Okay, so Shirzad Shaman. So I'm going to talk quick about positive intelligence because I'm not going to promote him, but I'm becoming certified as a positive intelligence coach as well. So it basically talks about our capacity to respond to life's challenges in a positive way rather than a negative way, like having a positive mindset. So basically, the gift of COVID. People were struggling with COVID. I was struggling in the beginning, but COVID gave me the gift. I turned that energy into, I can start my own business. I am an introvert, so I'm okay with not having to go out and see people all the time. I'm okay having video conferences. I'm okay just kind of like, wow, I finally have time for myself now. I can exercise. So if people want to read about this, for those folks that are very analytical, we need the proof, we don't know whether this is true, go to positiveintelligence.com. And the research that this is based on so much research. It's neuroscience, performance science, positive psychology, cognitive behavioral psychology. It is just amazing. And the foundation of all of this, and I'm quickly through this, is basically, you know how when athletes work out, they have to constantly exercise their muscles when they run. But the part that we forget most of the time is our brain is also a muscle.
Yeah.
And the brain is the root of our mental fitness. And note, I'm not saying mental health. I'm not saying mindfulness. I'm saying mental fitness. So there are 3 parts to this. And understanding our saboteur inceptor. For example, my saboteur is restless. So I constantly have to do something. I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do now. And I'm all over the place. And then the other muscle of that is the sage. The sage is kind of like the muscle that says, hey, dude, relax. You got this. Think through it. What's the gift in this? Then you think about the sage has those 5 powers. So I become very innovative. So if I'm restless, I use my time to kind of like say, maybe I can create this content here. And then the basis of all of that, for those muscles to work, we call it the SelfCommand muscle. So when these women are going to join this group, they will all get access to an app. And the app, I will give them access to for 6 months as they have to continue as they try for the next 4. And on that app, they will learn kind of like to figure out like, okay, if I'm in a negative situation, like I was very stressed about coming onto this because I'm an hyperachiever, so I didn't want to make any mistakes speaking to you. So I did we called a positive intelligence rap. So we got a PQ rap. So I took 2 minutes out of just before this, and I visualized how I want this conversation to go. And it literally going is exactly how I visualized it. So it's 15 minutes out of their day for 6 to 8 weeks that they're going to have this application that's worth $1,000 and they're getting it for free. And if they want to stay on, I can completely keep them on. So this is kind of like the program that I am busy creating.
That's amazing. I can't wait to see when you create it, how it goes. I'm sure it's going to be so great.
Yeah.
And how long was there between the first time that you thought about doing it and like the first time you actually acted on it?
Oh, very quick. I'm an implementer. I would say about 3 weeks.
Oh, wow. Okay, cool. And how did you do it? Like what steps or like how are you doing it, I guess?
So as a coach, I also need a coach. So I was running through this with my coach to kind of like figure out to help me see the blind spots that I'm missing, right? So it's really process. The first thing is kind of like, okay, I know what I want the program to be about. I know the type of women, the audience the target audience that I would like for them to form part of it. I don't want to be exclusionary, but that is the demographic that I want to serve for this moment in time as my gift back to Women's History Month, right? And also kind of like thinking about, okay, what would that program look like over the first 2 months with me and me coaching, and also the next 4 months with them as a tribe, separately meeting and going and applying positive intelligence, as a group, and kind of like be each other's support, building in accountability for each other, how they will meet. And we call them pods, how they will meet as a pod every other week, kind of like go through all the trainings and the learnings from Shirzad. So once the vision comes to mind, the implementation for me, it's really easy. I'm a very creative person, but the hard part is like, if I cannot see it, I cannot do it. But I've already seen it, so I know I'll be able to do it. As I said, I have one person that's already interested when I ran it past her, and she's like, oh my gosh, yes, I'm in.
That's so cool. Oh my God, it's not even launched and already successful. That's cool.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you know what? And it's not so much about the money per se, because think about it. It's $195.52. That is the circle, and that is the price that these individuals will pay. Plus they get $1,000 app. The whole thing, if I had to run this for an organization, it will be 3 times the amount. But that 1952 is so ingrained now in everything that I'm doing that I feel like for the rest of the year, that's what I'm going to quote everybody for anything.
Yeah, definitely. That makes sense. That's very cool. And was there or is there any person who has an impact on it?
Yes. My dog.
Oh,
Can I tell you why?
please.
Her name is Daenerys, and they say you don't get the dog you want, you get the dog you need. So she's a COVID puppy, and I got her because I've always wanted a dog. And she's the opposite of me. She's fearful. She is scared of everything. She's super sensitive. She's quirky like me, at least that's one thing we have in common. She's super smart. And I don't know if you've seen the movie I Am Marley.
Yes, I think I've seen it. Yeah.
So the guy wrote about Marley, and my dog has been such a pivotal part in me learning about myself these past 2 years since I've had her. Her showing all my imperfections, all my flaws, and indirectly challenging me because she doesn't speak. But when I look at her and I see when I become impatient, and she gives me such unconditional love, it makes me think like, wow, wouldn't it be great to give back in a way? So as part of my women's group, kind of like for us, like, I don't know if you're familiar with kintsugi, whereby we embrace, it's a Japanese art form whereby they take broken pottery and they piece it together with gold. So the metaphor behind that is for us to embrace our flaws and imperfections, and then we can fully realize our potential without that holding us back. So it's about working on awareness in order for us to also heal in many different ways.
Yeah, that's such a great metaphor. And also, yeah, I've never had a dog, but it seems that, yeah, you can learn so much from them. That's very cool. And have you faced any challenges so far?
I think the challenge for me is more about just getting the word out there and kind of like, I don't know if it's marketing or just start sharing it more so, because I have not verbally shared it yet. I've only shared it with my current clients, my coaching clients, but I haven't shared it like on a platform like LinkedIn or social media to kind of like, hey, this is what I'm doing. So I think that's the challenge, but I look at it more as an opportunity because I haven't tried it yet. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, definitely. I'm looking forward to see your posts. And on the contrary, has there been anything easier than you thought it would be so far?
Yes, the easy part for me about that was, oh my gosh, it came together very well visually and on paper. And now it's about, okay, so now I just need to start implementing it. Yeah, so that's the easy part.
Cool. And why are you proud of it?
I'm proud of it because this is an homage to my mom, to my family. And I'm proud of it because as a solopreneur, I'm giving back in a way that supports women, and I'm an advocate I'm a feminist, and I'm mostly proud of it because I said I would do something to give back and to amplify women's voices, and I'm doing it.
That's amazing. Well, thank you so much for sharing. I think I'm done with my questions, but maybe there's something else that you want to say that we haven't mentioned so far in our discussion.
No, I think, yeah, I've spoken a lot. I'm not going to speak to anyone for the rest of the day. So the one thing, if I can have the last word, I love art, and one of my favorite artists is Georgia O'Keeffe. And she says, I feel there is something unexplored about woman that only a woman can explore.